What up, B Squad? It is your boy JB, and I am here today with the review for Married at First Sight. This is season 16, I believe. You guys, episode, well, I don't know what season it is. Season 16. This is episode 15, and this episode was titled, let's get the episode title, you guys. Episode was titled Whiskey a No-No. So before we go ahead and get into it, if you guys are watching this video or any other video on this channel, and you guys aren't subscribed yet, then do me a solid favor and stop taking me out on this date and having me pay for it at the end of it. You guys know the routine. Do me that favor by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, turning on your post notifications, and sharing the video. And with that out of the way, without further ado, let's get into Married at First Sight, shall we? All right, you guys, so this episode is another one of those episodes that is just boring as all get out, you guys. So we're gonna start up with Jasmine and Hits from the Streets, you guys. And we're gonna work our way down. So Jasmine and Hits from the Streets. So both are each individually meeting with Devon Franklin to basically talk about their marriage. So Jasmine was the first person up, and he talks about the breakthrough that Jasmine had with the ladies in last week's episode. You guys remember when she was talking about Hits from the Streets, and she broke down crying. So Jasmine was talking about how typically in her relationships, she's just kind of sweep things under the rug. And Devon was like, you sweep stuff under the rug so long, eventually it's going to pile up and everyone's going to see the mess that is up under there, right? And, she also talked about with her parents, how she didn't see, conflict with them, see it with them. And I think that can be a good thing and a bad thing when it comes to people who are married. You don't want your kids to see you in conflict, but I'm pretty sure that her parents had some things that they had to deal with, but they probably dealt with it just them, and the kids were none the wiser, right? But then at the same time, it kind of does hurt the kids, because the kids then, when they grow up, they don't know what healthy communication looks like. They may know what it looks like, but they might not know what it looks like inside of a thriving marriage, right? So, he also asked her, so the way that you feel about Hits from the Streets, have you expressed that to him? And she says, no, she hasn't expressed that to him. And, Jasmine then talks about the fact that when she was in middle school, she was bullied because she was proper. And I really sat there and I listened to what she was saying. And I'm like, I don't think Jasmine has ever really worked through that, because she didn't tell her parents. And she got the love at home, but at school, it was a different story. So she never really 100% dealt with it. And I really felt bad for Jasmine, because I was thinking to myself, it's kind of like it's reemerging in the marriage. It's not necessarily bullying, but it's to a point where you are basically stifling yourself. You're not saying what the issues are. You're not facing them head on, and you're not addressing them. And that's not a good thing, right? So when it comes down to Jasmine, I kind of figured this about her, because they were talking about, what are Eris's expectations for the marriage. She won't ask that question because she's afraid of what his response will be. And I could sense that for quite some time, that the reason why Jasmine doesn't ask him the hard-hitting questions of, where do you see this marriage going? Do you want to be with me? Do you like, what is it, right? I figured that she didn't ask those questions because she was afraid of the response. And it also kind of gives a little bit that Jasmine is afraid of rejection. That's really what I think it gives. She's afraid of rejection. And, I've been big up in Jasmine for weeks, and I'm going to continue to big up Jasmine. Jasmine is a beautiful young lady, right? She has her head on straight. She's accomplishing what she's doing. So any man would be lucky to have her, quite honestly. But the rock kid that she's with, he's just a fool. So we see Hits from the Streets later, and he's talking to Devon, and he's talking about, he says that the physical attraction has been the biggest hurdle in the relationship. And that's because you make it you make such a focus on her physical appearance. She picks up on it, and her feelings get hurt because of that. So stop trying to make it as if it's her. It's you. You're not making her feel safe. You're not making her feel secure. You're not making her feel anything. So yeah, but then he's talking about how he likes her energy and he likes her calming presence. And even Devon had to point that out to him, like, that is attraction. It might not be a physical attraction, but it's an attraction nonetheless. So Devon asks him, like, do you want to grow in the attraction love? He says yes. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. I don't believe, like, when he speaks, I don't believe anything that he says. I think it's just lip service. I think two people on this cast so far really just give lip service when they talk to the experts. It's Hits from the Streets, and it is Gina. And we're gonna talk about Gina a little bit, but I think that those two really just give good lip service, right? They say that they wanna do this, they say that they wanna do that, but then their partners are not getting anything from them, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this scene with them and Dr. Pepper real quick, and then I'll talk about it a little later once we get to it. So Dr. Pepper paid them a visit because later in the episode, all the couples, they went out and they went to why do these people keep sending me these text messages? I keep getting text messages from people talking about my Amazon account is suspended, my Netflix account is suspended, like every account they say is suspended, but it's a text message. How dumb do y'all believe I am, right? But so the couples went out later in the episode for line dancing. We're gonna talk about that when we get there. But so Dr. Pepper is asking Jasmine and Eris what happened the night before, right? And you know, she was like, I was just tired of basically brushing things over, right? So I just let it out and let it be known how I felt in that particular moment, right? So Hits from the Street says he felt like Jasmine was being, you know, it was unwarranted. It was over the top. I was like, excuse you, that was not unwarranted. Like, and I said, we'll talk about it when we get there, but it was not unwarranted. And this is one of the points, because Dr. Pepper was asking them, you know, about trying with the marriage, and I'm like, Jasmine may want to try. I just don't believe he does. I don't get anything from him that says I want to try to make this a viable marriage. I don't get that from him. But I want you guys to tell me what you think down in the comments below, and we're going to pause here and move forward. All right, guys, so next up is Nicole and Chris. It wasn't a whole lot with Nicole and Chris. I do want to say one thing. Chris finally said he loves Nicole, and I genuinely believe he means it. And I think she means it as well, right? So they sit down, and Nicole tells Chris, you remember last week's episode when she was with the ladies, that she was telling Chris, like, you know, if I tell you that I want space, don't give me space. You know, talk to me. And Chris was like, well, that's a little confusing. And it absolutely is confusing, right? What Nicole, I know what she means, right? Nicole is saying that if you ask me, is everything okay? And it might not appear that everything is okay, but then that also plays back to you, Nicole. It's not like Chris is not a mind reader, so it then goes back to you. If Chris knows that something is wrong with you, and you say, "Oh, nothing's wrong," she wants him to basically probe, right? To, you know, get out of her what's going on. But again, he's not a mind reader, so he can't really do that. So as much as you want Chris to do these things, you have to vocalize to him, right? Because again, he can't read your mind and say, no, that you want him to dig deeper. And let's say he digs deeper. What if you get pissed off at him and be like, I really wanted some alone time, Chris, like, leave me alone. So I actually got where Chris was coming from. But I mean, yeah, sometimes people do, when it does come, you know, people say, oh, I need a little space. Sometimes people do want you to ask them what's wrong. It's okay to talk things out, right? But I also feel that with Nicole, I think that Nicole needs to sit down with the therapist, because there's a lot that I feel like Nicole needs to unpack in some of the past relationships that she's had, and even the dissolution of her parents' marriage. I think that there's so many unresolved issues with Nicole. So I really like Nicole. I like Nicole and I like Chris, right? I can just see some things that don't necessarily align, right? And like I said, I think she needs to sit down with someone and just talk it out. It's okay. So then we see Nicole and Chris as they're talking to Pastor Cal. Now, I love the fact that both Pastor Cal and Chris stopped her, because she was like, Chris didn't pick her. Well, technically, he did pick you. In a roundabout way, he did pick you. You might not have, you know, he signed up for this show. You signed up for this show. Chris told what he wants in a woman, and you told what you wanted in a man, and so the experts matched you guys together. So technically, in a roundabout way, he did pick you. He may not have saw you on the street and said, "Oh my God, she's gorgeous, she's beautiful," right? That may not have been it, but and like I said, in a roundabout way, he did pick her. And like I say, once again, I think that they both could benefit from some counseling, right? Because we've said it from the entire season that they both definitely trauma bond with each other. So I definitely think that both Nicole and Chris could actually benefit from a little bit of couples counseling and individual counseling or therapy, right? Because there's just a lot there for both of them, I feel, to just unpack and just release into the atmosphere and let it go. So let's pause here and move forward, you guys. So I'm gonna skip over Kirsten and Shaquille, and I'm gonna move right on to Gina and Clint. Gina and Clint. Once again, Gina and Clint are nothing but good friends, right? They're gonna share custody of Hank because we all know the only connection that Clint has is with Hank. Him and Hank are gonna be really good with each other, right? But we saw as Clint was cooking for Gina, and at this point, I'm still like, Gina always talks about what, she just talks about, she talks about them and the relationship, and it's just like, Gina, I really, really wish you would just flat out say, I don't like Clint like that. He's cool to be a roommate with. He's cool to be a homie with. But for me, he don't do it for me. He don't tickle my fancy. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that, right? So we see Dr. Pepper, and Dr. Pepper went to pay them a visit, right? And Dr. Pepper telling them that they need to up their game a little bit. I was like, well, what game are we talking about here? There's nothing to up with these two, right? So Gina says, well, we still feel a bit friend zoned. I would imagine so. You two ain't even sitting close together. You're not holding hands. You're not doing anything. And I really think that, once again, all of this falls onto Gina, because Gina is not attracted to Clint whatsoever, like at all. So Dr. Pepper suggests that they ask each other what they need to feel cared for. Gina says that that's going to be hard. I was like, Gina, again, can you please just spit out the words? I don't like Clint. He ain't my type. I don't see it for him. Nothing perks up for me when I see Clint. I really wish you would say that. So Dr. Pepper wants them to watch, like, Driving Miss Daisy and stuff like that. I was like, Dr. Pepper, I get where you're going with this, right? It will, it's an emotional, it's like a rom-com, right? Or whatever you want to say, right? I know it's supposed to bring out the feelings and the emotions. Gina ain't got no feelings for Clint. She ain't got not a feeling, not an emotion for him. So I think that exercise is going to fall flat. Like, I really do, you guys. But let me know if you guys agree. But let's pause here and go ahead and move on to the next couple. Kirsten and Shaquille, you guys. Honestly, I'm really over Kirsten and Shaquille at this point. I'm over all the couples except for Nicole and Chris, and they're tip-tapping. And the reason why they're tip-tapping is because, like I said, I can just see the little issues in the marriage with both of them individually. But as far as like Jasmine Hits from the Streets, Kirsten and Shaq, and Gina and Clint, these three are working my nerves, right? So Kirsten was working out, and Shaquille's mom called her, right? So she asked her, how does she help Shaquille when he's feeling stressed out, right? Because she wants to be there to help him. So his mom tells her to be more supportive. And I was like, oh. And it was in that moment that I realized, I'm like, oh, so Shaq, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm like, he goes back and tells his mom everything that is going wrong with him and Kirsten, right? Again, nothing's wrong with that, but I was just like, I noticed that. So we later see Kirsten and Shaq. So they sat down with Devon, right? So they were talking about the night before, and this is going back to the line dance, which I'll talk about that in just a few minutes, right? So she says that last night was a big communication issue with them, and that they both dropped the ball. And Shaquille was looking like, I dropped the ball? No, you dropped the ball. And I will have to agree. We'll talk about that. Like I said, we'll talk about it in just a minute, you guys. So Devon asked Shaquille, do you feel supported by Kirsten? He says, yes and no. Devon was like, it's a yes. It's literally yes or no, not both. He said, well, no. So Devon asked Kirsten, do you feel like you support Shaquille? She said, for the most part, yes. I was like, really? I mean, maybe. I don't know. I ain't in a marriage and I don't want to be, but if he feels not, if he don't feel supported, then there is a disconnect with both of you. So Shaq started talking about, what he would need to feel supported. Now, when he was talking about, she could have did, and I was so happy that Devon stopped him. Like, no, you tell her how you feel. What will make you feel supported, but you don't tell her how her reaction what her reaction should be. And I like that he stopped him at that point. I like that he stopped him at that point where he was about to tell what her reaction should have been. No, sir, we ain't playing that game. Can all these people get a divorce already? Like, when is the season finale? Because I know what, in this episode, we got down to 10 days until decision day. So that means this season is vastly wrapping up, because I know next week they're going to go on a retreat. And then, Lord, please wrap this season up fast and in a hurry, because this season has not been it for me. And for this to be the season that I was consistent with, that is terrible. This has been the one season that I've been consistent with. But let's pause and wrap up this episode, you guys. All right, you guys. So the couples went line dancing, and I want to know whose idea. Did Nicole make herself the spokesperson for the group, or did they decide about that, right? So they were talking about, you remember in last week's episode, the guys went to the baseball field, the girls went to the winery, right? So Hits from the Streets want to know what the ladies talked about. Jasmine told them how she broke down in front of the group, and then Nicole decides that she wants to tell Hits from the Streets and Jasmine that they need to both work harder. I was like, now, who made you an expert? I just want to know that question, right? So then they were talking about, they were somehow, I believe it was Clint, and I know it was Chris, who talked about two of their friends who had some mental health issues, and they ended up taking their own lives, right? And then Shaq opened up to the group and told them that he has attempted to take his as well, right? And I was like, ooh, when you listen to the way Shaq talks sometimes, right? I keep saying it, you guys, I really do think that internally he is struggling with himself. I really do believe that Shaq is struggling with who he is. Some way, somehow, he is struggling with himself. And I hope he works that out. So Nicole was like, again, I don't know who made Nicole the spokesperson, but Nicole decided that she wanted to chime in and say, well, your wife, she will be basically saying in a nutshell that she's going to be the one that's going to be there for him and, support him and whatnot, right? And Kirsten was like, sure. I was like, you could have said that with a little bit more enthusiasm. And Shaq listened to that and heard how she said it, and he got upset and walked out, and he left out, right? So she followed behind him. So this kind of led into the conversation about her not going with him on the last trip. So I guess he had planned for her to go on a trip with him, but she decided no, she was gonna come that Friday, but then she changed her mind. It is what it is, right? So we found out that Kirsten and Shaq have consummated their marriage. I'm gonna keep that comment to myself, what I was thinking. But in a nutshell, I know Kirsten. So Kirsten finally let me know what kind of man she likes. She likes an ain't shit nigga, right? She likes a nigga that's just gonna pay dust to her, and then come in there and tell her, you need to get your shit and let's go. Like she's that type. She wants kind of like an aggressive dude, and I mean, that's why she doesn't feel that Shaquille is masculine. That is why she doesn't feel that Shaquille is masculine, because she's used to she's used to Eris. Eris is her type. Eris is Kirsten's type. That's why she doesn't feel that Shaquille is masculine. That's why she don't feel that man is masculine, right? So, they meet up with the instructor, they learn the line dance, and, everybody was having a good time. All the husbands were dancing with their wives, with the exception of Eris. Eris was dancing with the instructor. And Jasmine got pissed off, and I was on Jasmine's side when she got pissed off. So Jasmine's like, no, I'm done. So Eris followed out behind her, like, well, I was the worst dancer in the class, so I just thought that she was, just trying to teach me some dance moves. I'm not trying to invalidate your feelings. But then when I was with Dr. Pepper, you completely invalidated her feelings by talking about it was unwarranted. It was not unwarranted. You neglected your wife. Talking about she's not even really my type. We know she's not your type. We know she's not your type. You told us what your type was. Megan Thee Stallion and Beyonce, right? Oh, he gets on my nerves. So then the last part of the episode that I want to talk about is Kirsten and Nicole. So they went shopping for some lingerie. And this, once again, plays into what I said earlier about Nicole. I just really want Nicole to, because I think Nicole lacks self-confidence for one, too. Because she was talking about she doesn't feel comfortable with lingerie. And I love the fact that Kirsten was there to give her encouragement and support her. And when Nicole came out in the lingerie, she looked amazing. Like, I want Nicole to love herself, love her body, just love everything about Nicole, because I think she's an amazing person. But that's really all I got for this episode, you guys. It ain't much more I can give to it. This was another boring ass episode. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn your post notifications on, share the video. And until the next time, you guys stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Wash your hands. Be blessed. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.